John Savage had finished work, and Terry said to John, he said, you know, John, if you don't have to go home, if you like it here, why don't you stick around? And the only thing I ask, come out at lunchtime. Get in your combat fatigues, have lunch, and then hang around for an hour. If I don't use you within an hour, go on back to town and go to the bar, or do whatever you want. And if you want to stay around, you're welcome to stay. And then John said, well, I love it here, I'll stay. So John would stay, and then we'd be shooting, and several days would go by, and he'd go back in town, and this one day we'd have smoke around, and he'd say, get John up here. And so John would come up, and he'd say, John, go into that smoke and rail against war. So John would go in there, and you killed Bobby, and you this, and then this. And then he'd say, you two guys walk by him and don't pay any attention. You two, this scares you. And so Savage stayed, I think, an extra month.
Why did he say he's directed so few films? Did you ever sit down and talk to him about the fact that...
No, you don't with Terry.
You don't with Terry?
No, because first of all, you get so engaged in a conversation of either philosophy or something that you never get around to why he has, you just don't ever get to that subject. He's either, you're talking about life, you're talking about Homer, you're talking about birds, you're talking about this and everything, but you get the sense that, well, I said to Grant Hill when I was down in Australia, the producer of it, one of the producers, I said, you know, here's a man that does one film every 17 years. Now, if he waits another 17 years after this film, he'll be dead. And it's obvious that if he does one film every 17 years, he can't be making his living at film. So why would you assume he'd ever bring this film in on time? You know, what's the incentive? If it was me, I would just shoot forever.
That's right. He's having a good time.
Yes.
He's got some actors he likes.
Yeah.
He's telling this story. It's finding its own way.
Sure.
It may or may not get there.
Yes, right. So Grant got extremely upset and said, you can't say that. He's going to bring it in on time. He's going to bring it.
Did he?